Hello YouTube, this is Wired Radio Moscow here again with another beer review. Now for this one I want to take you across to the other side of the world from my native Scotland and bring you one from the South Island of New Zealand. Now this is the Big Smoke beer, which comes to you from the Wired Brewing Company, who are based in Blenheim on the South Island of New Zealand. Now for those of you who have maybe tried the Schlenkerla Rauch beer, this is probably one you'll want to try as well, and indeed this is how I heard about it. Now Schlenkerla is from the beautiful kind of medieval city of Bamberg, just beside Nuremberg in Germany. Definitely worth the visit for all the different brew pubs if you want to go there. It's a really beautiful little town. But this is how I heard about this beer. I really enjoyed Schlenkerla, and it was one of the beers that really kind of put me on the downward spiral towards becoming a beer snob basically. But anyway, for those of you who are interested in the history of this beer, the brewery, sorry, I'll just take you through that just now. But if you're simply interested in the tasting of it, just fast forward to a few minutes before the end of the video and you'll get to see that. But anyway, the history of the Wired Brewing Company goes back to 2005, and it was founded by Søren Eriksen, who's a nomadic Danish brewer but set up permanent roots in Marlborough on the South Island of New Zealand. Now Søren had apparently always been a big traveller, and he liked to try the local beer wherever he went, but he said that back then he wasn't really a beer snob and he was simply trying the same generic lagers with different labels on them. Now in 2005 he was finishing up his master's degree in chemistry in Perth, Western Australia, but he was a regular at the Little Creatures brew pub in Fremantle, which was where he made the realisation that there was more to beer than simply the fizzy yellow stuff, as he put it. But that year his future wife Monique got him a Cooper's home brewing kit. Incidentally, Cooper's are the biggest company in the world for that sort of thing if you're interested in it. But apparently the beer he made from this home brewing kit was terrible, but it did get him hooked on the idea of craft brewing. Now upon moving to New Zealand in 2006 he upgraded his home brewing to advanced all-grain home brewing. However, this remained just a hobby for him, as he was a researcher at the University of Auckland for the time being. Now in September 2008 Søren decided to quit his research activities in biochemistry, and he upgraded his brewing activities to commercial brewing. Now initially he'd planned to open up a brew pub on the North Island of New Zealand, but he landed a job with Renaissance Brewing in Blenheim on the South Island and so relocated there, and he and his family have remained in Marlborough ever since. Now quickly he and his wife realised that running a brewery is hugely demanding on both time and finances, and so similarly to Mikkeller and Tolul from his native Denmark, Wired don't actually have their own advanced brewing facility or their own dedicated brewing facility, but rather they make use of unused capacity in other breweries. Most of their beer is actually brewed at the Renaissance Brewing Company in Blenheim, but they're also making a few beers at the Steam Brewing Company in Auckland in the north of New Zealand. Now the name 8 Wired was apparently inspired by the Kiwi can-do attitude and other craft brewers who have attempted to push the boundaries of beer brewing, but the name itself comes from the number 8 gauge wire that was originally used in electric fencing, and although it was one of these it's been one of these things that's similar to duct tape. It's basically a material that's become far more versatile than it was ever intended to be, but it's apparently become a symbol for New Zealanders and their can-do attitude, that they can always fix a problem when the resources are against them or time is against them or anything like this. But anyway, the other brews from 8 Wired include the Saison Sauvin, which is a Saison ale, the Hop Wired and Semiconductor, which are double IPAs, the I Stout, which is an Imperial Stout, Haywired Wheat Beer, which is obviously a wheat ale, Rewired, which is a brown ale, Tall Poppy, which is a red ale, Bamaye, sorry, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce that one, which is a 16% barrel-aged Imperial Stout, and of course they have the Big Smoked, and there is also one called Rewired, which is a brown ale. Now I'll just let you have a little look at the bottle art and stuff on this one. It's quite simple actually, I have to say. It's actually got a lot of condensation on it from the fridge, this one, I have to say. As you can see, it's just you can see the 8 Wired brewing thing on it there. It actually has a bit of I'll just dry it off maybe actually, that's a good idea, so it doesn't look so bad on the camera. But as you can see, it's a fairly kind of simple sort of design on this one. Just, it says it's a smoked porter. It has a bit of a product description on the back there, and it basically just kind of goes through, as I was telling you earlier, that the fact that this beer was inspired, basically saying it uses the Bamberg Rauch malts. As I said, it was inspired by the Schlenkerla Rauch beer from Bamberg, and it also tells you a little bit about Søren Eriksen on the back. For those of you interested in the bottle caps, as you can see on it there, it simply says 8 Wired with the little sort of barbed wire going around the outside of it. But we'll just get this guy open and we can start to go through the tasting session of this. Okay. Right, so let's get this guy poured out. I need to watch with this one apparently, because I've heard that it bubbles up a hell of a lot, so I just need to pour it very, very carefully. I think that's a fairly nice pour I've managed to get out of that one. So there we go. Okay, so for those of you interested in the types of malts and things like this, or the style of this beer is a 6.2% smoked porter. Apparently they just took their porter recipe, their best porter recipe, and added some of the Bamberg Rauch malts to it. But apparently the beer uses Southern Cross and Williamette hops, and Bamberg smoked, Gladfield Pale, Crystal Carafa Special and Black Patent malts. Now obviously it's inspired in some way, as I said earlier, by the Schlenkerla Rauch beer, and apparently it's also won 2 awards from the Brewers Guild of New Zealand, so this is bound to be a very, very good beer, I have to say, and it does smell it. So in terms of the appearance, as you can see, the head's dissipated a little bit there. It's got a nice sort of tanny coloured fluffy head on it. I'm not seeing very much in the way of carbonation through it, but I think that's just due to the dark colour. If I hold it up to the light there, you can see, it appears very sort of black, but there's not really anything coming through there. There is maybe just a little tint of red to it, I have to say. In terms of the aroma, as expected, it's a very, very smoky smell to it, basically from the roasted malts. There's some hints of of chocolate and caramel in there. It's actually similar to Schlenkerla Rauch beer. It has a very, very sort of almost meaty smell to it, but I would say it's more a kind of roasty smell it has than the meaty kind of smell. But anyway, let's just get the tasting of this one. I'm quite excited to try this one, being a big fan of the Schlenkerla Rauch beer, as I mentioned earlier. This is actually really, really nice. The big thing, as I would expect from a smoked beer that's coming through, is the roasted malt so far. But yeah, dominated really by the roasty malts and smoky malt flavours. There's perhaps a little bit of underlying sweetness to it. But there's actually some hints of caramel and chocolate in the background as well. But this is really overplayed by the smokiness to it, I would say. Surprisingly, in comparison to the Schlenkerla Rauch beer, it tastes a bit thinner actually. It doesn't quite have the same barbecue taste to it, I would say. And it's not quite as thick as the Schlenkerla Rauch beer either. In terms of the mouth, I'd say this is more mid-bodied, and it is quite a heavy beer. It is quite filling, but it is more mid-bodied rather than anything. It's actually got quite a wettish mouthfeel to it, I would say. Yeah, but the carbonation is quite moderate, and it's very, very smooth on the mouth, I would say. But overall, it's kind of very complex in its flavour, and it certainly delivers on the promise of a smoked beer. And I would say it's definitely one to try. This would be a really, really good beer for, eating with a roast dinner, some roast pork, roast beef, that sort of thing. Definitely good for that. In terms of comparison to the Schlenkerla Rauch beer, it's slightly different in that sense. It's not quite as thick and syrupy as the Schlenkerla Rauch beer, and it does lean more towards the sort of roasty coffee flavours rather than having that meaty element to it. It doesn't have too much of the sort of meaty element that the Schlenkerla Rauch beer does. It's not quite. A lot of people describe the Schlenkerla one as being kind of barbecue, but anyway, this is a really, really nice beer, and I'm quite pleased with this one. It's not quite Schlenkerla Rauch beer, but not many things can live up to that. But this brewery, apparently, if they can produce a beer that's as good as this, I mean, it's obviously going to be a very, very good brewery. And I'd highly recommend that if you see this one, you try it. It's actually quite an expensive beer here in Scotland. I think I paid like £8 for this bottle or something like that. But I mean, it's definitely worth it to have. If you just think about the distance between Scotland and New Zealand, I mean, not really going to complain about the cost of importing it. It's a very, very nice beer. Definitely give it a try. Try it with a roast dinner, I would say. But anyway, thanks again for watching my beer reviews. I'm hoping that it's been informative to you and I haven't just rambled a load of rubbish. But if you've enjoyed it, please like and subscribe to the video, and subscribe to my channel actually. And let me know in the comments section your own thoughts on this particular beer. And New Zealanders, if you're watching, please let me know some other craft breweries in New Zealand for me to check out, and hopefully I can import some of these as well. We actually get a very limited selection of New Zealand beer here. I was actually very lucky to get this because there's a little shop in Aberdeen that has some of the different 8 Wired things. And incidentally, the only other 8 Wired beer I've ever tried before is the collaboration between Brewdog from Aberdeen and 8 Wired itself, and that's one of the other things where I heard about this brewery and it reminded me to have a look at them up. But they're a very, very good brewery. Definitely check their things out. But again, please like and subscribe to like my videos, subscribe to the channel, and comment and let me know your own stuff. But thanks again for watching, and I shall be back tomorrow with another beer review. Cheers.